1, 0. All engines running. Commit. Liftoff.
America would go to the moon not once, but twice by the end of the decade. On November 14, 1969, Apollo 12 lifted off from Florida's Kennedy Space Center. At liftoff plus 36 seconds, and again at 52 seconds, the spacecraft was struck by lightning. Every electrical circuit went wild.
The actual weather at the Cape was a front that was going by that did not have any thunderstorms in it. And actually what happened was it was about 600-foot overcast with a tops 20,000, and we generated our own static buildup and discharge, but it only took 36 seconds to do that, and what it did was discharge right down our rocket plume, which was just like having a ground wire.
Crew members Charles Pete Conrad, Richard Gordon, and Alan Bean, with support from ground control, soon brought the spacecraft back online.
Bus light, fuel cell disconnect, AC bus overload, 1 and 2, main bus A and B out. Okay, we're all organized again, John.
We've had a couple of cardiac arrests down here too, Pete.
Other than this initial problem, the mission was a success, beginning with an accurate landing on the moon's ocean of storms, only several hundred feet away from the unmanned Surveyor 3 probe.
The primary purpose of Apollo 12, in addition to landing on the moon, was to perform what we call a precision landing. We flew 240,000 miles to the moon. We landed on the rim of a crater that contained the Surveyor 3 spacecraft that had been in that crater for some 2.5 years. So 240,000 miles later, we landed on the rim of a 600-foot crater, and that's not bad Kentucky windage, I'd say.
Hey, there it is. There it is. Son of a gun, right down the middle of the road.
Outstanding. 42 degrees, Pete.
Hey, it's targeted right from the center of the crater.
Hey, look out there.
I can't believe it.
Amazing. Fantastic. 42 degrees, dude. Just keep slide it in. Coming down at about 99 feet a second. You're looking good.
Traffic Houston, go for landing. Over 1.
Roger, Roger. 40 degrees, LTD, Pete. 40
That's so fantastic, I can't believe it.
9%, you're looking good.
The Surveyor probe Apollo 12 was landing near was one of 5 such machines that had measured and mapped the moon's surface for NASA.
Coming down at 4, you're looking good. 50 feet coming down. Watch for the dust. 40 coming down at 2. Looking good. Watch the dust. Coming down at 2, Pete. You got plenty of gas, dude. Hang in there.
30 seconds.
18 feet coming down at 2. He's got it made. Come on in there. 24 feet. Contact light.
Roger, copy contact.
Pro. Yeah, pro.
That's what I see sitting on the side of the crater. Real Surveyor, huh? Real Surveyor, yes, sir. Does that look neat? It can't be any further than 600 feet from here.
Conrad and Bean left the lunar module Intrepid twice during their 31.5-hour stay, again to collect rock and soil samples and set up scientific equipment, including machines capable of measuring seismic activity. They also ventured twice as far from the LEM as Armstrong and Aldrin had and retrieved pieces of the Surveyor craft. On November 21st, 1 week after liftoff, Intrepid docked with Richard Gordon in the command module Yankee Clipper. Intrepid was allowed to impact with the moon's surface. Its collision registered on the seismic instruments. Alan Shepard was originally slated to command Apollo 13. Shepard hadn't flown since 1961, when he became the first American in space. He had developed an inner ear disorder that had grounded him. Shepard fought back, endured complicated surgery to correct the problem, and was scheduled for Apollo 13 when NASA officials decided he needed more training. Jim Lovell would go in his place. Lovell jumped at the chance to return and actually land on the moon after his lunar orbit experience during Apollo 8. The circumstances seemed fitting. Lovell had become part of Apollo 8 by swapping places with Michael Collins, who had undergone surgery to remove a bone spur on his spine. Now he was changing places again. Lovell's crew included Lunar Module pilot Fred Hayes and Command Module pilot John Swigert. Swigert was another switch, a replacement for Thomas Ken Mattingly, who had been exposed to German measles. The random arrangements that determine most missions, in this case, placed these three men on the most dangerous flight of Apollo.
Clock start, flight.
Roger. Start to go, all engines.
Roger. Okay, Fido, how's it look?
Looks good here, flight. Good agreement.
Okay, Booster, how do you look?
That's 1C looks good, flight.
Okay, Capcom, we go you on the ground. Okay, we go at 1, Capcom.
Get relief, flight.
Roger.
The final near-fatal substitution was a faulty liquid oxygen tank that had been originally scheduled to be placed aboard Apollo 10. No one knew it was a bomb waiting to go off.
This is the crew of Apollo 13, wishing everybody there a nice evening, and we're just about ready to close out our inspection of Aquarius and get back to a pleasant evening at Odyssey. Good night.
3 days out, on April 13, 1970, following a transmission from the crew, a short circuit caused by a wrong voltage thermostat switch occurred. The oxygen tank exploded, tearing a hole in the service module. In the command module Odyssey, a warning light flashed on. Main bus B undervolt. When they appraised the situation, the three men concluded that 2/3 of their fuel was gone. They were 200,000 miles away from Earth, and only one oxygen tank was keeping the remaining fuel cell and the astronauts alive.
Houston, we've had a problem. Main B bus undervolt.
Roger, main B undervolt. Stand by, 13, we're looking at it.
Okay, right now, Houston, the voltage is looking good. We had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning. And as I recall, main B was the one that had a amp spike on it once before.
For perhaps no other time in the program, not even during Apollo 11, the world's attention became focused on the status of three astronauts.
Here is a bulletin from ABC News. The Apollo 13 spacecraft has had a serious power supply malfunction that could cause the lunar landing mission to be terminated early.
NASA worked unceasingly to bring the astronauts home. The crew moved to the lunar module Aquarius and shut down all equipment except life support and communications. Even this might not be sufficient, because the LEM was designed for 2 men for 45 hours of use, and Apollo 13 was approximately 90 hours away from home.
It was sort of a bad position to be in. We were going in the wrong direction. The Earth was back there, and we had to go around the moon, use the moon's gravity to twist us around, and then use the lunar module, really, which was very fortunate that we had a lunar module. Had this happened on our Apollo 8 flight, the three of us would probably be a monument to the space program. They'd be going around forever up there. But fortunately, we had the lunar module, and we used its engine, used its oxygen system and everything like that to get us back safely. And, of course, finally, it would not make a re-entry into the Earth. It's a very flimsy vehicle, and we climbed back into the command module just before we hit the atmosphere. And I'm glad to be here to talk about it today.
Before the ordeal was over, Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert would overcome life-threatening obstacles and nightmarish conditions. Their physical well-being was eroded by cabin temperatures that approached freezing. Increased humidity permeated both men and equipment, first with water, then ice. Much of the dehydrated food, designed to be mixed with hot water, was unusable. In addition, water itself was rationed. Hayes developed a kidney infection. Reaction time slowed as the astronauts succumbed to dehydration, fatigue, sleeplessness, and the cold. The lunar module systems could not handle the high levels of carbon dioxide produced by the astronauts. Using directions supplied from a mock-up made in Houston, the astronauts used available materials to adapt air purification units from Odyssey to function in Aquarius. This working relationship between the stranded men and the ground crew typified the around-the-clock efforts of all concerned with Apollo 13's welfare. And yet, nothing went fatally wrong. Critical burns were accomplished successfully. The command module, essential for re-entry, powered up